That's good. Welcome to everybody. And a very warm thanks to Kathryn Hall-Trujillo Mama Kat and to you, Hae-young Lee. Very nice that you could both join us, and thank you very much for taking the time to be part of this webinar today. My job is very simple, and it's a pleasurable one. It is to welcome you and to just introduce you briefly with the bios that I have to hand. So I'll do that now. Just to say that Kathryn Hall-Trujillo, commonly known to her friends and probably her enemies, if she has any, as Mama Kat, is a public health administrator. She's been a community health educator and advocate in the public and private sectors. Has been addressing the racial and gender divide in women's access to healthcare. She's the founding director of Birthing Project USA, the Underground Railroad for New Life, a global maternal and child health organization, which has provided technical support and resources to maternal and child health stakeholders in 13 countries. Her experience in understanding, translating and bridging policy, administration services, delivery, and client cultures has earned her the national and international recognition, including presentation of the Lifetime Achievement Living Legacy Award and appointment as an official ambassador by the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, FIGHR, a United Nations affiliate. Like Mel and Andrea, Mama Kat is an Ashoka global social entrepreneur, fellow, and she has been long associated as an independent scholar with the Cuba public health system. There is much more to say about Mama Kat than that, but I will leave it there just to say welcome to you, Mama Kat, and thank you so much for being one of our two speakers today. And Hae-young Lee, you're most welcome. You are, of course, the country director of Ashoka Korea, and you are also the global lead, co-lead of the New Longevity at Ashoka. And we very much look forward to understanding your approach to New Longevity. Hae-young is a founder and a global co-leader of Ashoka's New Longevity Initiative, which started from 2019 as part of the larger Next Now initiative of Ashoka. New Longevity Initiative aims to create a global movement to reframe aging and unleash lifelong human potential to lead a longer, healthier, and purposeful life as a lifelong giver, contributor, and change maker. And we say yay to that. Absolutely. Hae-young has been an inaugural country representative of Ashoka UK since 2013. Under Hae-young's stewardship, the first 15 Korean Ashoka Fellows were elected to join the Global Ashoka Fellowship of over 4,000 social innovators around the world. Also between 2016 and 2019, Hae-young led the birth and growth of the multi-million-dollar national initiative of Ashoka Korea called Time to Open the Future, with the mission to accelerate education innovations in South Korea by creating and nurturing a unique ecosystem of education innovators beyond silos and borders. She sits on the board of Brian Impact Foundation, which is the biggest impact philanthropy foundation started by a billionaire tech legend in South Korea. On behalf of Mel and Andrea, Caitlin and myself, you're both very welcome indeed. Thank you for joining us, and let me hand over to Andrea now to run the session for us.
Thank you, Chris, and very welcome to all of you to the Elders session about elders and diversity. And I think it might be worth just thinking about for a moment what we mean by diversity. And there are sort of two ways of looking at that. One is a rather negative one, and one is a very positive. So one of the issues that we've been thinking about in the elders and in terms of diversity is that it depends on how you look at it, whether you're an elder looking out at the world, or if there are people looking at you as an elder. And often those are two very different things. Elders feel they have so much to give to the world, they have so much experience, they have so much knowledge, but often when elders appear from the outside to the outside world, people often overlook elders. They think of them as people who are not relevant anymore, or that because their grip on technology may or may not be as good as younger people, and we've all had those experiences. But there are so many amazing things about the other side of diversity, in that in terms of intergenerational elders and youngers working together, we know for a fact that small children gain so much from having the presence of grandparents, that there are so much that people can give. We know that, for example, Barefoot College trains grandmothers to be solar engineers, to be the people in the village who put those in India, to put those things in place. So we know that there is a huge amount of diversity within the elders, and also within the social enterprise group of elders, which I know Hae-young will talk more about. But when you think of the number of social entrepreneurs who are older people and have been change makers for so long, they have so much to give and so much to share with the community and with youngers. So I know that Hae-young will develop on these themes. So may I hand over to you, Hae-young, to talk to us about your views on this topic.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you so much, Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs, for inviting me, and one of my favorite Ashoka Fellows, Kathryn, to share this stage, share this conversation with all of you today. I think Chris already explained, introduced me pretty in detail, so I'll just go straight to what I would like to highlight during today's conversation. There are 3 or 4 main points I would like to kind of throw out and really get your feedback and ideas as well. First is aging as, I think, when we say diversity, we often think about diversity in race, in gender, in cultures, which are mostly about what you are looking at outside. But today, I really want to encourage all of us to think about aging process as amazing inner diversity process. I don't know if this is something I coined, but the word intergenerational mindset. We always hear about intergenerational connection, collaboration, which I think is so important and is at the heart of the new longevity work we are doing. But I think before getting to intergenerational, I think it's so important that each of us embrace the idea of intergenerational, journey, which means there are not just me as current me, but there is older, there is younger me, which was, in the past, and current me, but also there is future, older me, older Hae-young, older Hae-young, so many in so many different versions in the future that are possible. So I think that itself is huge diversity to celebrate and to make the best out of. So that's the first thing. Second thing is today's theme is eldership as an issue of diversity. And I noticed that you chose the word eldership instead of just elder or elderhood, but because I think there is certain distinction between eldership and just elderhood. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And also, as Andrea, you mentioned, I really want to talk about how I believe social entrepreneurs, like Ashoka Fellows in this room, are the best, probably the best examples of the role as the role models of who are the elders, true elders in today's world, and how, you know, how big potential we have as humanity if we are to combine that huge asset of elders with the younger generation, you know, and that can help us really solve the problems that the humanity and the planet are facing today. So these are the kind of key concepts that I'm going to talk about today. But before actually going into that, I want to just talk about my own personal life experience, because I think I was so fortunate to experience the huge benefit of the age diversity and eldership itself, because I joined and I started my career in social sector in NGO when I was 24 after graduating from the graduate school. And I joined a human rights NGO in South Korea at the time, working for the human rights of North Korean people and North Korean refugees. And this NGO was founded by someone who was the founding members of the Amnesty International Korea chapter, and who fought for democracy and human rights in South Korea for many years, for decades. And then he decided to start this new NGO focused on the human rights of North Korean people. And I joined as a 24-year-old, you know, fresh activist. And guess what? Guess what his age was at the time? The founder of this organization, he just founded. He was 72. So, and we were just a small NGO, like a startup. So there were not many people. So he was the founder, but also he was the head of the international work that we did. And I was there. So he was basically my boss. And I was working with him, you know, doing all the meetings, going to meeting, you know, doing the meetings and doing the international conferences and meeting the journalists and all of these things. So my first boss, you know, in my life was in his 70s. And then later I met someone who I now call as my first mentor, who was actually a human rights expert and who worked in many human rights crisis in Cambodia, in some African countries as well. And he came to Korea to work with us. So he became my main counterpart and workmate, and ended up being my mentor and best friend now. And he was also at the time in his late 50s. And I remember when we went to Geneva actually to lobby for the very first human rights resolution at the UN in Geneva to be, and we were there to lobby for that resolution to be passed by the UN. After our mission was completed successfully, we had our breakfast, you know, in a small hotel, and there he told me, because our job was done successfully, he said, you know, I really, I think you are a person who are both productive and enjoyable to work with. And he said, it's not easy to be both, you know, it's often the one or the other, but not very easy to have both. And as someone, you know, a new social activist, you know, starting my career, hearing that comment, the feedback was so important, which really kept me throughout my, you know, past 20 plus years of career as someone that I should, you know, try to be like that and also help other people to become like that, you know. So it just shows how I from pretty early on in my career experienced that power, that value of having that kind of relationship in the workplace and also in my personal life. So yeah, so I really wanna say that I think, you know, that the fact that I'm now working at Ashoka, and from about 4 years ago I started this this new initiative called New Longevity, which really is about seeing older people as powerful contributors with unique strengths, unique qualities, unique asset to contribute to the next generation, and to also collaborate with the next the younger generation to solve the world's problems that not only one population or one generation can solve. So yeah, let me just now go back to this aging as inner diversity. There is an episode which I think some of you may have heard about, you know, this innocent child asking this question: where do all these grandmothers come from? Do you know this question? just like how you know, children sometimes get very curious, where do babies come from, right? But as they get older, soon enough, you know, they learn how the babies are born, where the babies come from. But it seems like we don't really understand what the aging process is, and we sometimes even forget the fact that someday you will become an old person inevitably. But you know, even myself in my 20s and until 30s, I never really, you know, could imagine myself in my 50s or 60s. I was afraid to do so, or I was never given the kind of right environment to kind of have that kind of imagination to you know, to really think deeply about the implications and the kind of investment I need to make. So the concept again of intergenerational mindset and being able to see and connect with many versions of yourself, from not only from the past but forward towards your future, and being able to prepare yourself for this later stages of life, and also investing in yourself, investing in your future skills, investing in your future relationships, investing in your future you know, economic security. Also, all these things are so much more important these days, because as you all know, human life expectancy has doubled in the just past 1 century, and so yes, but unfortunately, I will just finish with this last thing I want to point out. Unfortunately, even though there is so much youth-centered culture, still we don't really, you know, teach, or we don't let our children or young people know about the importance of you know, being the ability to connect with your future self. But one recent research reveals that if you internalize ageism and negative attitudes toward aging, you actually lose 7.5 years of your life expectancy in your own life. So if we really care about young people, I think we really should actually let them know how harmful this can be for their own lives, right? So this is all interconnected. Yes. So I'll stop here and just, yeah, get some reactions and feedback.
Thank you so much, Hae-young. That is so fascinating. It's so important, and your own story is really just a real lesson for everyone. And I was at an event last night where people were talking about how important positive thinking is, that you actually, your brain starts looking for positive things if you start thinking that, you know, looking at positive things, which just endorses what you're saying. But I think it would be very nice now to hear from Mama Kat, to hear about the work that you've been doing on as Hae-young has referred to, intergenerational, you're certainly talking about intergenerational issues. So we'd love to hear from you.
Well, hello, and I am very, I'm very happy to be here and to be a part of this conversation, because this is one of those things like, where do babies come from and where do elders come from, that you don't often get an opportunity to just ask that question and to hear what other people have to say about it. And I'm especially happy to be here this morning, because one of the catalysts for me to actually be rejuvenated around aging is becoming a part of the Elders Council. The very first time that we met in France a few years ago was the first time that I actually felt like I was in high school almost, and this was a senior class, and we were getting together and planning the prom. You know, it was just so nice to be with people who were my own age, who had my own experience, who had gone through something together, and were now getting ready to graduate and figure out what we were going to do with the next part of our lives. And so this part of my journey has been very exciting to me, because one of the things that happens intergenerationally is always figuring out where you belong and who you belong with and who you belong to. So having a home base kind of gives me that inner security to feel that I have roots and wings, in it's okay to be who I am and where I am. And it's something that I'll be figuring out as I go on the next journey, because you actually don't know what it's going to be like in the next part of your life. You know, when you're graduating from high school, you have an idea of what you're going to do. But by the time you get around 50 years old, you look back at that and go, well, life has a way of making some turns. So with that said, I will say that where I am now in my life is a place that I didn't imagine, but it is more like my life becoming more concrete of the path that I was on. I'm the oldest of 9 siblings. So I have always been an elder. I've always had the responsibility of taking care of my brothers and sisters. I've always, and when you have brothers and sisters, it's a whole range of humanity. So it's a way of getting used to loving people that you don't always understand, but you know that they belong to you and you belong to them. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is that I guess at the core of me, I'm a midwife. And I have gone from helping women birth babies to primarily helping women birth themselves. Because I think especially as we get older and falling into the stereotype of what your life is supposed to be, and coming to the reality of what your life is, and that having babies and birthing and caring for other people is one part of you, but learning to birth and care for yourself is the part that's usually been put on the back burner. And so to me, the idea of helping women claim the lives that they have as they're going into this next phase of their life is the hardest thing we ever do. The time when we're most likely to be diagnosed with a mental disorder, because we're confused because we're saying no, and other people looking at us and they're confused because they're not used to us saying no. And this is a time when you really need a midwife, a doula, a OBGYN, a mental health specialist, a healer, whatever it is you need to help coach you through this place of getting to look at yourself and hold yourself in your own hands and say, but what does this person need in order to live her best life? And one of the really nice things that has happened to me is that I ended up in a role that just encompassed that. As a community elder, as a queen mother of a global organization that helps to support emerging leaders. And the idea of being a queen mother is not to be the head queen, but to actually be the mother of the now generation of young people who are stepping into that space of leadership. And it's not like I was spun out into the world and someone said, you don't have a place anymore. But actually the best place in the world, I think, is to be in a space where you can watch young people grow and to go through that process of intergenerational development that we didn't even have a name for, and now we do. And ending up, my newest assignment just last week is I am my organization's ambassador to Cuba. And what more could a girl want? Because Cuba is a place that has 4 centers of excellence at the government level, the highest, what we would call the federal level in the United States, on aging and on gender. And the idea of living your best life from the time you're born until the time you die, and making that a societal issue, making it a goal toward equity in your country. So I would kind of close by saying my aha moment is really realizing that in order for I think for our human species to survive, we have to figure out how to have those smaller units of family and village, community, or whatever, where we feel that we have roots and we belong, and it's okay to grow wings. And I think that however you enter that conversation, it's a conversation that all of us need to have, because I think the biggest gift that we can give to the generations that are looking at us and wondering what the heck is the eldership is that it's nothing to be afraid of. It's a natural process. And if we're lucky and blessed, we will end up there. And at age 75, I can say it's the best part of my life.
Well, that's quite a sentence to leave to finish on, Kat. So this is a really wonderful conversation that really shows that with the work that Ashoka is doing and the longevity movement, and with your sort of inspiration and leadership, Kat, that, I really feel that we can make a real difference. But one of the things that's made me think while you're both speaking is that as Hae-young says, people don't realize, or none of us realize when we're 20 or 30, that we are going to get there. We're all going to be older, but maybe it's best to help other younger people in that, who are thinking that, to say, what would you do for someone else? Because it's so hard for them to think that they are going to be older. It's hard for all of us. I mean, I know I look at myself and think, how did I get here? When did that happen? So I think that there are things that between us all we can come up with that will help people to understand that it's not to be frightened of, and it's something to be excited about, and how much they have to give as they go through their lives and hand that on to youngers. So I wonder if there are people who want to come into the conversation themselves at the moment, or if there are any questions for our amazing speakers.
Andrea, there are a couple of comments which may be useful to elaborate in the chat. Faustina is talking to us in the chat from Ghana, I think it is, and also Fiza Yamin has got some comments as well. Maybe one of them under your.
Faustina, would you like to put your question or comment to us? Hi, Faustina. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. I have to join another meeting soon, but I'll quickly talk about, I'm happy you were talking about the elderly and diversity. And I must say that the elderly are treated differently all over the world, because of the different cultures, because of the different backgrounds, upbringing, colonialism, so many, other factors and make it very different. But there's also one thing that runs through all of them, wherever they might find themselves. There's a lot of discrimination and challenges that face the elderly. Indeed, internationally, when we talk about women, we're always fighting for women, but we never specify that we want to advocate for the elderly. We say women and girls. We never say the elderly and all that. So you realize that the elderly have been relegated to the background, and their challenges are never addressed. In my country, for example, in Ghana, elderly women are considered witches. When they start having these, they become senile, menopausal symptoms, and when they have dementia and things like that, they are considered to have become witches. And it's like every young woman is growing up to say that, oh, in future I'll become a witch, and things like that. And it doesn't help the elderly. They are beaten, they are ostracized. We have camps in Ghana now where chiefs and tribal leaders have tried to get refuge for them, living in very poor conditions with little food to eat and that kind of thing. So we have formed an alliance with Govind Dev and Nathan in India, about 20 members in the alliance who have formed the alliance to end witch hunts. And we'll be very happy to join the Elderly Council and for us to work together on how we can solve some of the challenges facing the elderly all over the world. Thank you very much.
We'd be delighted to support you in that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Go on, please carry on.
I have to leave because I have another meeting right now.
Yeah, well, we're delighted you joined with us. Thank you so much.
Take care, Faustina. Get in touch.
Please, I'll do so. Thank you.
And just on the point that Faustina has made, that we on one of our webinars, a woman joined us from the United States who works with older people, elderly people, elders who are abused by their families, either because they're either neglected or the families would like to have the money, and so they're neglecting and abusing elderly and older people. So we know that what Faustina has raised is, as she says, an international issue, and it's one of the really serious negative sides of being older. And so it's something we'd like to talk to you about, Faustina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mia, I wonder if you'd like to join us to put your point of view or your question.
Hi, can I be
Hi,
heard?
Mia.
Oh, okay. While I was listening to both Hae-young and Kathryn when they were sharing their experiences, I got reminded of how the situation here in the Philippines growing up, there wasn't really any accurate media portrayals that would view aging in a positive light, because we would always see the elderly being portrayed as, I'm so sorry for the word, degenerates. They would call them degenerates on TV, and then they would make lots of insensitive jokes towards the elders, and that was what I saw when I was growing up. And then when I look at the spaces, the current spaces that we have locally and nationally, rarely do we have any like events or talks or even spaces that would enable that intergenerational conversation to take place. And so it was very interesting to see how Kathryn and Hae-young, through their social enterprises through what they're doing with Ashoka, how they build these spaces in order for these people to interact. So that's mine.
Thank you, Mia. And I think that what all the things that you're saying, everyone's saying, is really pointing out why we started the Elders in the first place, that we felt that we had a lot to offer and a lot of energy to do that, but we were also aware that people are overlooked, and that there is a real serious need to see older people as part of the diversity issue, that this is a section of the globe that has real serious difficulties and being overlooked and even abused and neglected. So I'm just glad that we're all so much part of this with the work that Ashoka is doing and the work that everyone and that we're now joining in. I wonder if there's anyone else. I mean, there are so many amazing older people. Go on, Chris, please.
Yeah, Bill has his hand up, and then
go on.
has her hand up.
Sorry, Bill, I didn't see your hand up. Please go ahead.
That's okay. Good morning. I'm actually in California, so good morning from California.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I just wanted to say that as an older person, I do something very different, and that's where I put myself in spaces where our future leaders are going to be. I actually am the president of the Gay Elder Circle in West Hollywood, California. And what I do is I do a number of workshops on LGBTQ and dementia, LGBTQ and the challenges of aging as an LGBTQ older adult. And I'm doing these workshops at the college and university level for nursing students and gerontology students. Part of the mission statement for the Gay Elder Circle is to be visible elders in the community. I don't wait for people to come to me. I put myself in their spaces. And I think it's important to meet people in their spaces. And it really has opened up my world in terms of the fact that I'm actually working with county and state agencies to deliver this message about equality and equity and diversity. And I feel through the workshops that I do, I'm doing mentoring on a kind of a grand scale by reaching, a couple hundred students every academic year. So I think part of this, or for myself, is that we're in those spaces, we make ourselves available to be in those spaces.
Well, I think we have a lot to learn from you. We'll be in touch to learn how you're doing that, Bill. That's great work.
And Bill, do join up, by the way. You'll find the link in the chat. It'd be lovely to have you as a member, and we can have more discussions then.
And it's free to join.
Oh yes, it's free to join. Yeah. Andrea, Mama Kat has her hand up.
Yes,
please go ahead.
Yes, I'd actually like to respond. I think that that we know for a fact that language is the carrier of culture. And I think that this is an opportune moment, and I hope I get a chance to work with Hae-young on the future on this, because I think it's a starting, not even a starting point, but we realize that we're in it already, where we have to create the narrative that we would like to be seen and heard and carried on in the future. And so the things that we look at, it's not just women, it's grumpy old men. It's all of these things that we say, and the witches and whatever, and that becomes the narrative. And anything other than that is like an outside alternative point of view. And we need to move that further to the center. The other thing that I would really say was a lifesaver for me was the book, Women Who Run with Wolves, with Dr. Clarissa Pincolas-Estes, who actually claims the narrative of being the witch, claims the narrative of being the crazy old woman that won't do what other people expect you to do. But she creates those stories that are like soul stories. And it, again, with education and the way that we consider what is education and what is not. Some of the things that are most true are not a part of our official educational system. And what I'm saying is that now we have lived long enough to be at a place in technology and communication where we can take more control of what is being said rather than just dealing with the things that are out there and fighting against that wall.
Kat, could you also just explain about the experience you had with technology? That would be really good to hear.
I was at, thanks to Ashoka, I was at Tulane as a modeling the concept of a community professor. So I'm not usually a college professor. I'm a hands-on worker type person in the community, but I was very, very familiar with my subject, but I didn't know how to operate anything that plugged into the wall for real. If it doesn't come out of a woman's body, I don't know what to do with it. And so Tulane offered me technical assistance based on my age, but they also, I realized, offered it to all professors over a certain age. And that was just like the biggest whoop-de-doo that the professionals had experienced in a long time, because on one way it felt like if you needed technical assistance that you were not up to par, and that somehow it was based on your age. But for me, I needed technical assistance or I could not even get in the game. But that is really one of those aha moments about how do you get in the game and where do you get in the game and how do you ask and receive help without making it seem like you need help and you're not up to par.
It's a really good question, really perfectly put. Thank you. Hae-young, I know you have your hand up, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Mia's very, candid expression about the situation in the Philippines. But I wanted to say that you are not alone. I think the situation is pretty much the same, at least in my part of the world in Asia. And that's why Ashoka, now with our new longevity movement, we're now organizing ourselves in different geographical hotspots. In Asia, I think we have our own cultures and traditions to deal with, and the huge narrative change we also need to work on in Asia as well. So we're now connecting some countries in Asia where Ashoka have fellows and have our teams on the ground. So Japan, we're starting with Korea, Singapore, Indonesia, and Japan. But we do have our fellows and our wonderful team in the Philippines. So we really look forward to, inviting you to our regional movement building for new longevity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Andrea, do you think we should use the word or phrase whoopie-doo as a kind of official?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a very nice thing to do when we come across something good. But this is such an encouraging conversation, because I can feel that we are all able to really make a difference here. And doing this together is very powerful, I think.
Very
now
we have Jane with a hand up. Jane Kim.
Yeah, I'm Jane from Korea. I feel really honored that we have a Korean speaker here. So I'm also Korean. So thank you for having me here. And I didn't know what is this about actually. Just I look up the Eventbrite today. So I saw one of the Korean speakers and relevant to the diversity and inclusion. So I just joined here. So I may not be specialized on this area, but I really love to listen all this story. But today, I also felt like this is one of the very important issue. I can say that this is an issue as inclusion and diversity. I'm working in the field of the diversity and especially in the cultural point, but I hope to include of this part also, because the senior or the these things are easily neglected, like other people say. But I didn't know that other country has the same issue. But in Korea, especially, we have a very different experience and then different history in their life. My parent generation, for example, my mom had the experience of a hunger, but me never had such a things. But my children generations, digital generation, they never had such a things before or in their life. So we have a big different thinking and history and experience in ourselves. So this makes us a very big thinking gap, or the about the how to say that in a political way or in other way, everything is very different. So that makes us a very big conflict, and we don't communicate each other because we face so much big difference each other when we communicate. So we never try to understand about their background or our background, but still we are arguing. Then because of we have a very big seniority culture, so we are not arguing, just we keep quiet and we stop communicating with them. That's the very social way that we are facing each other when we have such differences. And even in these situations, for example, like my mom still sacrificing herself to take care of my kids while I'm working. So these are also very common physically, or in their life still they are sacrificing the whole their life. But for me, I'm not willing to do that for my children. So, so that is also a very big difference. But these things are something, if we consider or think about this thinking and then the actual situation and reality and then the support and these things, actually they are the very precious and important person, and they have sacrificed a lot. But we never put too much time or efforts to think about and consider about it. So because of government and policy, these things are maybe Hae-young know very well about this one, but what I feel, my parents and me, we easily ignore the situation of my parents because we are more focusing on our children. And then the government also, they put a lot of money for children and then the youth, but not for the elderly. And the elderly, because they don't complain, oh, it's okay, you can do that, okay, you pay more for children, not for me or something. They are all too much used to the life of sacrificing of themselves from the very beginning of their life, because it was so bad condition after Korean War. So if we are not intentionally trying to put them into our considerations, maybe it will continue, I think, until my generation. My generation start to make a voice, but my parent generation, they never do that. Just, okay, I keep quiet.
Yeah, you make a very, very good point about sacrifice and that generational attitude to sacrifice. And it's very interesting in the UK that there is a big discussion at the moment about how grandparents are the real carers of children because their parents are out at work. And the other issue is that since COVID, the government here is asking people over 55, over 65 to return to work because they're worried about people not earning money to pay taxes and not contributing to the national revenue. So it's becoming a very big discussion everywhere. And I think you make that point really well, Jane, about grandparents and those generational issues. It's coming up to the point where I'd like to bring in Mel. Mel is, of course, the third founder of the Elders Council. So is this your moment, Mel?
I think it's my moment, Andrea. Thank you very much.
Your moment in the sun.
Yes. So I'm always given the challenging job of trying to sum up these webinars, which are always so rich in inputs. It's very difficult to kind of sum them up, but let me have a shot here for 2 or 3 minutes about where we've got to here. First of all, thank you to both contributors, because it really was fascinating insights and also some great questions and contributions. But we started off with Hae-young from Ashoka and New Longevity, talking about the intergeneration journey. So fascinating, listen to the younger me, the me now and me in the future. And I think that for me anyway, makes you start to think about yourself and others around you completely differently. And Hae-young was talking about looking at diversity in that way. It's very, very rich. So there's huge diversity to celebrate, actually. And then some of the challenges in the world, you can start to say, well, we can start to kind of build on that for solutions together through the generations by looking at things that way. And Hae-young was talking about how when she was in the human rights field, she was moving on, and the founder was 72. So learning quickly, actually, about the other generation and different elders as a younger person. And then seeing New Longevity, which she works on and leads, as seeing as old people as powerful contributors with unique assets and inputs, and be seen that way. So it's seen as aging as inner diversity. I love the comment that you made about instead of the child asking where do children come from, it's where do all the grandmothers come from. And once again, it changes the dialogue when you start thinking about this. Yes, where are all the grandmothers coming from? You start to think, yes, there's different generations there. And then a final comment I thought, which was really interesting, was if you ignore older people, then you lose 7.5 years of your life expectancy, which I thought was fascinating. I wondered who'd done that research. But it's true, and something maybe we should flag up as part of the elders. So that was a fascinating insight. And then we had Mama Kat, and of course, I was there in France at that very first meeting, which Mama Kat calls very special, almost like a graduating party, and a point in your life and our lives where, you know, just that feeling of belonging, that you weren't alone, that we all weren't alone, and here we are now taking part in this webinars. And I thought Mama Kat's words, she feels she now has roots and wings, was absolutely spot on. So that sense of belonging, that sense of being a community, whatever that is, it gives you your roots as an older person, but also lets you see the potential with the wings that you can move on. So Mama Kat's seeing her at this moment now with the experience she had as a midwife, that not now you're bringing the child into the world, but actually you're bringing people into the next stage of their life through eldership, and as a new generation, young people growing up. So that's incredibly positive. And then ending up now being, for her organization, the ambassador to Cuba, which she said was absolutely fabulous. So really two great contributors, and I can't really do justice in summing up what they were saying. And then we had some really interesting insights and questions and comments from the chat, which is always great. You know, for Stina in Ghana, talking about how badly elderly people were treated, particularly women, and talked about women being involved in witch hunts. Mia, similarly, from the Philippines, talking about how the elderly are vilified, how the aging process is seen a bad thing to be, so being old is bad, and so you're going to get vilified. How do we create spaces where people can connect together was a key question. And Hae-young came back later on to say that this kind of attitude was prevalent not only in the Philippines but also in other parts of Asia, and that New Longevity and Ashoka were keen to connect there to challenge some of these attitudes. Then Bill came along really interestingly from the US, from California, and talking about how he put himself into the spaces. So he wasn't waiting around. He put himself there as an older person into where potential young leaders were, where students were, and talked to them about their issues in his way, with his experiences. And there's obviously a kind of clear leader. Mama Kat came in at that point talking about the book Women Run with Wolves, where, and indeed touching on technology, which all of us maybe have challenges with, you know, we create our own narrative. And so it might be that we're people are perceived as witches, but if we create your own narrative, then that's how you create the change. So it's about grabbing the moment, as it were, and talking about it in the way that we want to talk about it. And then Jane finally came on and talked about her experiences in Korea with her parents, who came from a different generation in the way as they've grown up, because they were used to austerity, I guess, in their young days. As they got older, so they carried that attitude with them, and that was something to learn from, but it was also something that they shouldn't be shying away from. So all in all, I think we had a fascinating conversation here. As usual, we didn't have enough time because we could have been here for another hour or so. The recording, as it says in the chat, will be sent out. So if you want to pass it on to people, please do, because I think there's a lot in here. We will certainly be following up with them. And what I thought was a really excellent contribution, excellent discussion. And finally, just wanted to say thank you very much to everybody. And I will hand back to Andrea and Chris at this moment. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Mel. Just to say that we are working, the Elders Council is working with Ashoka on gathering the wisdom that we are gleaning from our webinars. There's so much, as Mel says, richness in these conversations, but I know that the chapter from this particular session will be very, very helpful. But thank you to you all. I personally have gained a lot from it, and I'm really grateful to you for joining Mama Kat at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Bill too, and to Hae-young for joining at 10 o'clock at night, and also everyone joining in at really difficult times, but very valuable. Thank you. Hand over to Chris.
Yes, just to say a very warm thanks to you for attending the seminar. We will be making a recording of this, and we'll be making it public, which is on our website and so on and so forth, and our YouTube channel. So do please go there. Hae-young, personal thanks to you. Thank you so much. And Mama Kat, thank you very much indeed. It's wonderful to have one of our global advisors on our panel here. So thank you so much. Take
Thank
care,
you
everybody.
all, and keep in touch.
Yes, and join
Thanks.
if you are not a member.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll all work together to make a change in eldership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was
Bye.
fabulous.
Bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.